Hey, good morning, everybody. You'll see that we've asked people to use a certain naming convention so that it makes it easier for our technicians to turn. So if you are not, so if you could please connect using your country name first and then your first and last names, that would make it much easier for our technicians to find you. LV, I think that's Latvia, so that will work, but a few other people are listed in different formats. I think I understand why, and some of you won't be seeking the floor, so that will be okay. But if you've signed in, or if you're just signing in and joining us, we are going to start shortly. We have the 3 ambassadors ready to go, and we don't need the ambassadors to sign in again with their country. That's fine. Secondly, I have a question from Mongolia about raising your hand. If you'd like to raise your hand now, we are starting the speakers list. Again, and you have done so. We remind you that interventions to the 3 ambassadors during the first hour should be done for no more than 2 minutes. I'm getting too many messages while I'm sending you this. And so if you wish to raise your hand, you can speak in English, French, or any of, I think, 8 languages that we'll be using this morning. So interpretation rather, is the button is in the left-hand corner on your screen. You just select interpretation and it will hold. And if you're trying to read those slides rather, just hit that 4 arrow and you should be able to expand your screen and read that as well. I will just turn off my microphone and camera and answer a couple of questions that are coming. My name is Patty Torsney, and I'm the secretary to this Committee on UN Affairs. Just to clarify that Interprify technology is a little different, and you have a picture on until you are called upon to speak, or video stream. So that's why it's important to raise your hand, and when you are recognized, the ambassadors, again, who are presenting don't need to raise their hand. We will turn on their or ask them to accept the offer to turn on their video when they are called upon. We are going to start any second. And if I could just clarify that you don't need to see yourself. You are connected if you can see yourself in the participant list. The chat is open if people would like to comment. Then we will turn to the chair of this committee, Senator Juan Carlos Romero, who's joining us from Argentina. So if you can, I think I will turn to the senator now. I'm just going to check the time. It is 8:03. Let's turn over the microphone to him, and he can invite the 3 ambassadors to open the meeting. Over to you, Senator Romero. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Patricia. Welcome. Bienvenidos a esta reunión, que es la segunda sesión del Comité Permanente de Asuntos de las Naciones Unidas. Tuvimos una reunión muy exitosa el martes pasado para hablar sobre el papel de los parlamentarios en la superación de la pandemia y la construcción de un futuro mejor. También se habló el tema de las vacunas y de la salud como un bien público. Como todos saben, con motivo del 75 aniversario de las Naciones Unidas, en septiembre del 2020, se celebró una importante cumbre para revisar el papel como principal organizador multilateral de la gobernanza global. Incluso antes de la pandemia del COVID, la confianza con el multilateralismo se estaba erosionando y el mundo en su conjunto luchaba por abordar desafíos como la creciente desigualdad, la pobreza, el cambio climático acelerado, la pérdida de la biodiversidad, la explotación de los recursos naturales, la creciente amenaza de la proliferación nuclear y los conflictos armados. La Declaración de las Naciones Unidas, 75 aniversario, señaló 12 compromisos para abordar estos desafíos dentro de un marco multilateral más consistente, más fuerte. Tomados en conjunto, estos compromisos constituyen lo que los gobiernos han denominado nuestra agenda común. Nuestra agenda común consiste en la realización de un esfuerzo conjunto, global, para un mundo más sustentable, justo y pacífico, liderados por el conjunto de naciones a través de las Naciones Unidas. La sesión de nuestro comité hoy dará a participar a los parlamentarios un debate sobre la agenda común ONU 75 y su seguimiento. Todo el debate podría reducirse, si queremos sintetizar, en un par de preguntas. ¿Qué tan serios son los Estados miembros de las Naciones Unidas para cumplir con esta agenda? Ya que se verifica un poco avance, muy poco avance, en los ODS y otros compromisos importantes. ¿Cuál es el lugar de los parlamentarios en esta nueva tarea? Nuestra primera hora de reunión incluirá un debate con dos destacados embajadores ante las Naciones Unidas y un socio principal de la ONU. En la segunda parte de la reunión tendremos una encuesta interactiva y un debate sobre las opciones que a ustedes, parlamentarios, les gustaría que sean abordadas en la agenda común. Primero, pedir a los embajadores que nos compartan sus conocimientos sobre este tema. La embajadora Matu Hojini es la representante permanente de Sudáfrica ante las Naciones Unidas desde enero de este año. Es una diplomática experimentada, con cargos en América Latina, el Caribe. La embajadora Hojini tiene experiencia en el sector privado y en gobierno. El embajador Bob Rae es el representante permanente de Canadá ante la ONU, tras una larga y distinguida carrera como político en la Cámara de los Comunes de Canadá y como primer ministro de Ontario. La embajadora Elizabeth Cousins es presidenta y directora ejecutiva de la Fundación de las Naciones Unidas. Ha tenido una larga carrera como diplomática y como líder intelectual a nivel internacional. Como ex representante de Estados Unidos en la ONU, la embajadora Cousins desempeñó un influyente papel en innovaciones políticas de la ONU. Trabajó mucho en el desmantelamiento de la paz y en los objetivos de desarrollo sustentable. Escucharemos a cada uno de estos distinguidos embajadores y luego tendremos tiempo para preguntas y comentarios y concluiremos esta sesión al cumplirse una hora. Embajadora Hojini, por favor, la palabra es suya.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you very much, Honorable Member, and let me thank all of you for inviting me to speak and share South Africa's perspective with you and to have a dialogue around to what extent is South Africa taking the common goals or the common agenda seriously and implementing it as a member state. So thank you for creating this platform for us to engage. Firstly, what I need to put across is that South Africa is a strong proponent of multilateralism. And we believe that problems that we are experiencing today, the complex issues that we have to deal with are not just national problems. They cut across all, for all of us, they're global issues, and therefore they need strong global cooperation and collective action. And we saw in the UN 75 declaration a call to multilateralism, and we saw for us that this was multilateralism coming back. As we all know that before then we were seeing an attack on multilateralism. And we really also think that the COVID-19 pandemic has really taught us some hard lessons, that we are stronger together when we react together, when we reflect together, when we generate solutions together. We saw that in how we dealt with coming up with vaccines. And we believe that right now, more than ever, it is important that we continue with that collective action, even though that it is becoming fragmented, and we believe that we cannot let go right now. We're seeing vaccine equity not being looked at. We see vaccine nationalism being a problem. As I speak to you, most of Africa is not being provided with the vaccine that it requires. The COVAX facility is a problem as we speak. And we all know that we could never move ahead, especially with this pandemic, if some of the countries are left behind. So we think that at this moment, it's more important to even work together more within this institution, within the UN, to make sure that there's a collective recovery, that we address future pandemics, that we become prepared together. And to that extent, South Africa has, in the UN system, has made sure that it becomes part of collective action, the dialogue that are happening within the UN to make sure that we deal with this. There are dialogues that are being facilitated with Ambassador Cousins, who's with us on the platform, and we've been part of those dialogues. And they're really making all member states to think about the very common agenda that we've committed to, that our leaders have committed to, and we are contributing to that. Secondly, we've partnered with other like-minded countries to deal with the issues. This week, at the beginning of this week, we co-hosted a session with the US, Argentina, Norway, and Japan, looking at preparedness, in particular the financial architecture that we will need for a future pandemic and preparing for those pandemics. Thirdly, we are also part of Leaders Network. These are UN leaders that, following the declaration by the UN leaders who came forth to the Secretary General to declare that they are prepared to assist with the Secretary General with the implementation of the declaration. Those leaders have since met twice, and a group of ambassadors of the same network have met with the UN Secretary to say, how can we meaningfully contribute to making sure that the agenda is continues, and that you are dealing with the issues that you are concerned about. Nationally, we have been very involved again to put in place measures that we need to put in place at home. And I will be more than happy, mindful that I have only 2 minutes, I'll be more than happy to share with you all the measures that we took to make sure that South Africa deals with the challenges that we are dealing, prepared itself for the future as per the common agenda. But just to end by saying, not only did we play a role nationally in dealing with these issues, the SDGs, we have played quite a significant role in the AU during the chairship of South Africa of the African Union in leading various initiatives to make sure that no country in the continent is left behind when it comes to addressing the challenges, especially around the pandemic. But I'll be more than happy to share with some of the initiatives that were done within the AU and some of the initiatives that we have done within South Africa to address the questions that was asked. How serious are member states addressing the 2030 agenda within this period with the challenge of pandemic, of course. Let me end there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your speech, Ambassador Hojini. Now, Ambassador Wright, in the floor.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, and thank you so much for allowing me to join. I've had some technical challenges like everyone has these days, but I appreciate the chance to be with everyone. I guess it's just a couple of points that I would like to make to start the conversation. The first one is that I think the impact of COVID on all of us has been far greater than we appreciate it. It is, of course, a tragically impactful health event, and it's also an economic and social event. And I think one of the main impacts that it's had is to increase the extent to which countries are focused on themselves. And this is something that we at the UN feel very, very strongly. We watch our nightly news here in New York, and we see the focus on the United States. I think if we were living in other countries, we would see the same phenomenon, that the increasing, to be blunt about it, parochialism in the response, people wanting their governments to respond directly to them very quickly. And so the UN, the United Nations, seems very far away. The Sustainable Development Goals not necessarily known or embraced by national, regional, local governments, schools, not part of the curriculum in every country. So people can't connect with it as a series of clear global objectives. And I think this is a real problem. I think this is an enormously big problem for all of us. We're not going to solve the vaccine challenge in terms of access unless we make we really turn this parochialism around. We go beyond it and through to the other side and begin to understand that the words that we speak about the pandemic being an international global event that as long as one person is unsafe, everyone is unsafe, all the words that we use to try to describe the truly global nature of the crisis that we're in. But I think it's going to take an extraordinary amount of leadership and frankly from people. It's going to have to come from national governments, and it's going to have to really try to break through to a better place. I think that's something we feel and see quite a lot, and it's affecting us a great deal in the work that we do, and so I think it's something we really have to connect with. I think members of Parliament can play an incredibly important role in this, in their own meetings and caucuses and discussions, really reinforcing the fact that this is a global crisis. We are in a moment, whether it's in terms of COVID or in terms of climate change, where what national governments do is critical, but what we all agree to do together is frankly even more critical. And that, I think, is where really appropriating, internalizing the SDGs, making them part of our national plans, making them part of our local plans, our regional plans. That's where this all becomes far more important and critical. I think I'll leave it there, and I hope you've been able to hear me, and look forward to a chance to hear some questions.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Rai. Now, we give the welcome to Ambassador Cousins. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. It's a real honor to be with you today for this meeting, and it's always a pleasure to engage with members of the IPU and an honor to join Ambassador Joyini and Ambassador Ray in this discussion. You know, this topic is extremely close to my heart personally, having worked with or around the United Nations my entire career, and it's also very close to our heart institutionally as the UN Foundation. When we were created—
We are not able to hear.
No?
Ambassador Cousins.
I need technical assistance. I will need some technical support if you cannot hear me. Oh, you can't. Could someone confirm if they can hear me? I was told that, yeah, I couldn't be heard. So please let me know if there is a way to do that. I will keep going on the assumption that it's working all right then. Thank you. No, I was just saying that this is a topic very close to our heart as the UN Foundation, because when we were created in 1998, we were at what many now see as a high watermark of multilateralism in those first years after the end of the Cold War, when it seemed like new forms of cooperation were possible after decades of division. And although there were plenty of crises and divisions still, it was a time of real growth and innovation in the UN's work. Today, we are obviously in a very different place. The biggest threats we face are clearly global: the pandemic, climate change, inequality, technological threats, issues of the global commons. They reflect our deep interdependence, and they require deep global multilateral solutions. But our systems, and especially our politics, are not yet up to the task. And that really is the challenge of our times. The UN and our core multilateral institutions aren't perfect, but they have performed critical tasks over the years. Yet you look around the landscape of international institutions, and they face a range of pressures that severely limit their capacity to perform the functions we need of them today. They face declining and unpredictable budgets, popular skepticism about their value, and larger political dynamics that can reduce their space for innovation, engagement, and action, when that is precisely what we need to face the moment we're in. Just consider the pandemic. We're clearly still deep in the middle of this crisis as a world. A bare handful of countries have seen the lion's share of vaccines. The ACT Accelerator, which is an important innovation in multilateral response, is under-resourced. And we face not only continuing disease and devastating loss, but of course the potential for new variants to emerge that will threaten parts of the world that currently may feel temporarily safe. So it's a delusion to think we can beat this pandemic anywhere if we don't beat it everywhere. It's the essential global collective challenge. We've also lost decades of development progress, as you all know. We've seen the broadest collapse in income since 1870, and we've watched inequalities grow exponentially. And to be really clear, this pandemic is our test. The world is watching. If we aren't able to succeed in overcoming it for everyone, everywhere, I think we jeopardize whatever confidence the world has that we can rise above our differences when we confront other shared challenges. And that may be an even bigger threat when we look at the horizon of what those challenges are. So what would it take both to combat the pandemic, but especially to be prepared for future challenges? I just want to highlight three themes briefly that underpin the promise of UN 75 and our common agenda. First, I do believe we need a much more concerted effort across all of our countries and communities to assert the value of international cooperation. We've allowed that conviction to get stale in many of our countries since 1945, when people really did understand what it meant to unite as nations. And we need to be clear that cooperation isn't sentimental. Yes, it's about solidarity, but it's also about self-interest, and that surely can be a unifying principle, even in a turbulent world. Second, we have such potential to harness the energy, capabilities, and influence of other sectors and constituencies, from business to faith leaders to cities to youth. The Sustainable Development Goals that Ambassador Ray mentioned in particular create real opportunity for that, and we've barely scratched the surface of the possibilities. Third, we need governments to give international institutions more space to perform the way we need and expect them to. That means fiscal space, better and more predictable resources. It means political space, breaking perhaps a few of our bad habits in overseeing those institutions. And it means not just tolerating, but actually demanding that those international agencies and platforms innovate, that they take risks, that they push their member states sometimes, and that they embrace change. So finally, just a brief word about the role of parliamentarians. Your role is absolutely essential. You're obviously an essential arm of government. You have powers of the purse, powers of influence, powers to take policy and regulatory actions. And I think especially in today's world, the fact that you're close to your constituents, we the peoples of the United Nations, that's just an incredible resource that the UN and other actors could tap further. So again, I'm very honored to join you here this morning. Sorry for the audio difficulties earlier, and looking very forward to hearing your thoughts and observations and to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Cousin. I'm some issues with the internet for Senator Romero. I'm trying to monitor the chat and figure out the lists. If Senator Romero is not attached, if I could go to the speakers list, and we'll bring him in as soon as we can. I do have a question or comment from Mongolia, from Namibia. The speaker of Namibia is with us today, and from Turkey. I'll take those three people in that order, and Mongolia, the floor is yours. For a question or comment to the ambassadors, and we will work to have them bring that.
Greetings to everyone.
Hello.
Need to speak. COVID-19 is not only the health disease, that is also the economic and social crisis. I would like to comment some social inequality. COVID-19 is deepening global inequality. For example, the first one is jobs. The pandemic has increased the inequality between the workers. The vast majority of the workers in developing countries are informal jobs without access to types of the support that workers in the rich countries get from the governments. And the second one is that the virus is deepening digital divide. The pandemic is contributing to an acceleration to technological change, helping certain businesses to stay open digitally and enabling work from home. But 40% of the world's population are still offline today. The next one is the gender gap. The pandemic is negative effects is more severe in women in all the worlds. Women across the world are much more likely to hold jobs in retail and hospitality, where remote working is less possible, and which are particularly hit by lockdown, induced the job losses. Also, next one is the access to vaccine is very deep, very different between the rich and poor countries. Also, the access low-income countries such as Mongolia and all the Latin American and African countries facing heavy costs and both human and economic. Finally, I wanted to say that we know that policies such as free public health care, safety nets, and for people who can't work, decent wages and fair tax system have been found to fight inequality. And this is political choices. And therefore, our governments must learn these lessons from this pandemic. We need to seize this opportunity to build more fairer and more resilient societies and better tomorrow for us all. Globally, we need to work together to fight against pandemic and inequality. Thank you so much.
Is Namibia in the floor now? Thank you. Podemos invitar a Turquía, por favor, a ver si hasta tanto el speaker legislador de Namibia se vuelve a conectar.
Hello, I hope everybody is in
Adelante.
good health. Of course, the pandemic made us realize how interconnected and interdependent we are. So this is the perfect time for multilateralism. This is the perfect time for international organizations to come together and work together. Because it's not like the issue on environment, it's not like anything else that we may postpone. But if we don't act all together, we're going to all suffer together. So I think it's important we work together on issues like health issue, on vaccination. Whoever discovers the good vaccination should be able to share it with everybody. And the countries who happen to be more fortunate need to share their wealth and their resources with the rest of the world. United Nations is a representative of almost the whole world populations, countries, governments. IPU is a representative of all population, world population. We're there with our different parties are represented. So the opposition is represented in the IPU also. So I think we have enough power to do this, but we just need to make a decision and hope and pray that we can work together. Otherwise, we will be continuing to suffer. There are different ideas about when this will end. So in order to make sure it ends and it doesn't come with a different mutation and kill the whole world population, we just need to work together. Thank you. And I hope that everybody is in good health. Thank you.
Very much. Now, the India.
Mr. Chairperson and distinguished delegates, on behalf of the people and Parliament of India, I congratulate all the members on the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. As a proud founding member of the United Nations, India strongly supports the purposes and principles of the UN and has made significant contributions to implementing the goals of the Charter and the evolution of UN specialized programs and agencies. Since the UN was created in 1945, the political landscape of the world has undergone vast changes. Today, we are engulfed with challenges such as terrorism and narco-terrorism, pandemics like COVID-19, AIDS, climate change, migration, as well as humanitarian issues, intrastate conflicts. However, UN appears to have gradually lost its capacity to manage global governance, particularly in preventing and settling intrastate conflicts, terrorism, and taking a unified response to the latest COVID-19 pandemic. Today, the world is grappling with new and more complex challenges, with the structure and composition of the Security Council remaining a 1940s construct. In the changing world order, we need to bring about desired changes in the structure of the UN that safeguards the interest of all member countries without giving too much primacy to a few nations. The era of unilateralism is over. At the core of the call for reformed multilateralism lies the reform of the United Nations Security Council. It must be made more representative of the voices of developing countries. There is an urgent need for effective use of peacekeeping missions by the Security Council by making it more representative in the Council for peacekeeping mandates. We look forward to necessary reforms into the framework and functioning of the UN in general and the Security Council in particular at the earliest. Mr. Chairperson, India has played an important role in shaping the UN's agenda, taking the lead on issues of decolonization, apathy, human rights, disarmament, environment, terrorism, development, and other critical matters. India has a very proud legacy of shouldering this responsibility, not only by providing the largest number of peacekeeping troops, but also having lost more peacekeepers than any other country. India is keen on the UN exercising responsibility in meeting the global challenges of development, especially poverty eradication and climate change. India is also supportive of the UN efforts to promote the Sustainable Development Goals, as it was of the Millennium Development Goals earlier. Friends, I would like to conclude my speech with the quote of Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi, who, while addressing the 75th United Nations General Assembly 2020, said, "In its journey towards progress, India wants to learn from the world as well as share its own experiences with the world. I am confident that on the occasion of its 75th anniversary, the United Nations and its member countries will endeavor with a strong commitment to maintain the relevance of this great institution. Stability in the United Nations and empowerment of the United Nations are essential for the welfare of the world. On the occasion of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, let us once again pledge to dedicate ourselves for the welfare of the world." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we go to China, and then we go back to Namibia.
Honorable Chair, dear colleagues, the year 2020 marks the 75th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. The international community has reiterated its support for multilateralism and the important role of the United Nations, and jointly and firmly uphold the international system with the United Nations as its core and the international order based on international law. It also asked Secretary General Guterres to put forward comprehensive suggestions on the future development direction of the United Nations and the global governance system. According to China's understanding, the UN Secretariat is studying the Our Common Agenda report to be submitted by Secretary General Guterres and soliciting opinions from all over the world. At present, the century's changes and the century's epidemic situation are intertwined and superimposed. The world has entered a period of turbulence and change. The instability and uncertainty have increased significantly, and the sediment of unilateralism and hegemonism has sprung up. The deficits of governance, trust, development, and peace that human society is facing are increasing. It is still a long way to go to achieve universal security and promote common development. At the same time, the trend of world multipolarization has not fundamentally changed. Economic globalization has shown new resilience, and the voice of upholding multilateralism and strengthening cooperation and strengthening communication and cooperation has become stronger. We are in an era full of challenges and also full of hope. China have high expectations for the report of Secretary General Guterres. We hope that the report will respond to the call of the times, focus on international cooperation and sustainable development in the wake of the epidemic, and firmly uphold the international system with the United Nations as its core and the international order based on international law. China will always hold high the banner of peace, development, cooperation, and mutual benefit, expand friendship and cooperation with other countries on the basis of the five principles of peaceful coexistence, work actively to build a new type of international relations, make the global governance system more just and equitable, and build a community with a shared future for mankind. Thank you, and I wish everybody good health.
Veo que está en el piso el representante de Tailandia. Por favor. Muchas gracias, Corea de China. Adelante, Corea.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. As I would like to start that Thailand has been very supporting of the UN work throughout being a member during the last 75 years. And during this COVID-19, we have a lot of lessons to learn that unless we work together, we will not be able to solve this complex problem. At the same time, if we do not work together collectively, we will not also achieving SDG goal. In this regard, Thailand would like to make some comment that the UN system with member country, member state, have to work collectively together. At the same time, the parliamentarian through IPU can be effectively create awareness, to have political will, political commitment to work together to deal with complex problem. That this complex problem will not happen only this time, it will come back to us again. So we have to work together to deal with it. At the same time, we have to be prepared to deal with another pandemic or another incident. The way to work forward, that number one, dealing with complex problem, we need multi-strategy. One strategy may be effective to a certain extent. For COVID, vaccine is one main strategy, but it requires social strategy and other measures like public health measure, people participation. It also requires a multi-level approach from global down to the national, down to the local, and eventually down to the village. That all people have to participate to deal with this complex problem. So education, information, and communication are key to get them involved. And then the third one is multilateralism or multi-stakeholder approach. In this regard, I think we have to encourage working together more and more, to learn together more and more, so that we can working together to solve any complex problem now and in the future. Thank you.ผมปิดไมค์ละ
Thank you very much, colleague of Indonesia. Please, we go to quiet now. Thank you.
السلام عليكم. احنا اولا ارحب بالاخوان المشاركين، احييهم الاخوان المشاركين اعضاء الجمعيه ال 242 للاتحاد البرلماني الدولي في دورته الافتراضيه. طبعا واحنا نعيش اليوم من ذكرى 75 لتاسيس الامم المتحده، وطبعا دوله الكويت في هذا اليوم في هذه المناسبه طبعا تحب تاكد على بعض النقاط، وهي اهميه التاكيد على اهميه العمل الدولي المتعدد الاطراف في مواجهه التحديات العالميه، خصوصا احنا قاعد نعيش في وضع استثنائي، وضع جائحه كورونا اللي تاثر بها جميع العالم. فهذه الحادثه تتطلب توافر جميع الاطراف الدوليه تحت مظله الامم المتحده لعبور هذه الازمه وتعدي هذه الجائحه وايجاد الحلول، وكذلك التعاون لحل المشاكل الاقتصاديه والصحيه والاجتماعيه في جميع الاتجاهات. كذلك تاكد دوله الكويت على ان الدور البرلماني الرئيسي في البرلمانات العالميه في الرقابه والتشريع في هذا الاتجاه لتحقيق الاهداف التنميه المستدامه 2030 اللي صادقت عليها دول الاعضاء في الامم المتحده. هذه اشياء تاكد الكويت عليها في هذه المناسبه هذا اليوم. كذلك تاكد دوله الكويت تعزيز دورها في تعزيز السلم والامن الدوليين. كذلك لاحظنا شفنا دور الكويت دائما في تحاول لغه الحوار، لغه تجلب الاطراف الى طاوله حوار، والالتزام الحياد في جميع القضايا الدوليه والاحداث العالميه، فتكون وسيط سلام، وسيط لغه بلد انسانيه، بلد خير. فاحنا ناكد دورنا في هذا اليوم اللي هو يوم الذكرى ال 75 لتاسيس الامم المتحده. واشكركم على هذه الاستضافه، اشكركم على جميع اخواننا الحاضرين معنا المشاركين، ونلتقيكم في القريب العاجل ان شاء الله، لقاء حقيقي وليس لقاء افتراضي. والسلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.
Muchas gracias, estimado colega de Kuwait. Ahora vamos a Irán. Adelante, por favor, colega.
Dear colleagues, UN General Assembly taking into account the intervened nature of the challenges facing mankind in the future, in its joint declaration approved on the occasion of the 75th anniversary of its foundation, has stressed on the implementation of reinvigorated multilateralism as the only way to end these challenges, including COVID-19. Undoubtedly, in order to respond to immense and special challenges of today's world, there is a great need for integrating countries' cooperation under the leadership of the United Nations as the greatest and most inclusive intergovernmental organization in the world. While welcoming the demand mentioned in the UN 75th Anniversary Declaration about reviving the principle of multilateralism, we stress on the fact that the COVID-19 and the apparent incapability of countries in managing and handling the horrendous and terrible globe crisis arising out of it demonstrates the fragility of the current world order and its need for reforms. We can face these newly emerged challenges only through being together and with each other's help. However, with great regret, we are witnessing that instead of focusing on multilateralism and strengthening the structure of international organizations, some countries, through pursuing egocentric policies, are moving towards weakening multilateralism at the cost of victimizing and sacrificing others. Based on this, it is obligatory that the UN pursue the creation of a post-pandemic world with the spirit of equality and further cooperation in order to be successful in protecting the earth and its inhabitants, and also the prosperity. For this reason, we stress once again that multilateralism is not only an option, but a necessity which we must consider for a more equal, tolerable, and stable world. To achieve this goal, the UN must be considered as the hub of all our endeavors and efforts. Thank you for your attention.
Gracias a usted, estimado colega. Vamos a representante de... estamos con el tiempo ya cumplido. Escucharemos ahora los comentarios finales de cada uno de los embajadores y lo haremos en el orden inverso, a la apertura. Embajadora Cousins, por favor, tiene usted unos minutos para expresarse.
Thank you so much, Senator Romero. It was wonderful to hear all of the statements throughout this session, and thank you for such a rich discussion. Maybe just a few final observations. There is no alternative to multilateralism in a globally connected world with a population of 7.5 billion people whose future health and well-being depends on each other. Second, indeed, there's a rich opportunity to reimagining the forms and purposes of multilateralism in the 21st century, especially to engage other sectors and actors that have critical capabilities for problem solving and that have a stake in whether and how multilateral instruments perform. Third, parliamentarians, of course, have a pivotal role in all of this as an essential part of government, as leaders who are closer to constituents, as decision makers over resources, and as influencers with tremendous ability to shape the substance and tone of public debate about international cooperation. We've seen in this country and many others how destructive it can be to reinforce what was earlier spoken about as a more parochial view, to sow division between people of different communities and countries, and to withdraw from systems of cooperation. No citizen of any country benefits from that. So our only limitations are really our own behaviors, our own habits, some of our own politics, and there is a tremendous creative power in that to change if we harness it. So I'll leave you with that thought. Thank you again very much, Senator, for your leadership of this committee and for having me here today. Back to you.
Muchas gracias, señora embajadora. Realmente muy claro y compartimos sus conceptos. Embajador Rae, por favor.
Thank you very much. And it was a pleasure to hear. I'm a former parliamentarian myself, having spent the better half of my life in one parliament or another. So it's a pleasure to connect with all of you. Just to say a couple of things that have reinforced it. It's great to be on the panel with my colleague from South Africa, and as well as Liz Cousins. It's great to be able to share some perspectives. I think the key point is that we need to integrate more the work that national parliaments do with the UN. We need to connect how we do things together and as much as possible to increase the dialogue so that we're actually engaging with each other about the steps that we can take. I think we're all struggling with this question of self-interest and solidarity and the role of national governments and global governments. But I think it was the first speaker from Mongolia who described so well how COVID has magnified the differences and the inequalities which already existed, but are now bigger. And so our work becomes even tougher and more important as we try to engage in closing the gaps and bringing people together. And one can only hope that with the kind of technologies that we've all been using for the last year, we will in fact be able to dialogue more effectively with each other. We'll be able to engage with each other and share perspectives in important ways. And I hope very much that that's something we can do. And I deeply appreciate the opportunity to be with my parliamentary colleagues. In a sense, the UN is sort of the parliament of the world, but it's really the parliament of the world because you are the people that bring everyone together. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and we should perhaps sing a chorus of solidarity forever as we leave. But thank you so much.
Ambassador Ryan. Ambassador Guagini, please.
Thank you very much, Senator Romero. It was very interesting listening to the inputs that came through, and I was left thinking that there's so much where we converge. In fact, on almost all the points that we've talked about, there's convergence. It became clear to me that there's very much an interest in what we do at the UN, as representatives of citizens of our countries, being able to look at what we do at the UN and being able to have us account on the work that is being done there and the focus on the 2030 agenda. But what was interesting is your ability to get back to the citizens. I think one of the honorable members talked about going back to the communicating, educating, informing the communities, the citizens in rural areas and so forth. So, and that's the access that you have. I was also, I think, it became clear again that there is consensus in this platform around the importance of multilateralism. Almost all members, if not all of them, talked about how important it is for us to solve problems that we are experiencing together. And it leads me to the final point, which is linked to what my colleague Ambassador Ray said, which is, since we are focusing on these same issues, we are here representing the countries that we're representing, but you are representing our people as parliamentarians, to find more opportunities and spaces for us to engage and for us to pursue to make sure that we ultimately achieve the 2030 agenda. So thank you very much for this opportunity to engage with the parliamentarians. Thanks.
Muchas gracias, embajadora Congini. Muchas gracias a todos los participantes, a los expositores por su tiempo, por su compromiso con la IPU y por su compromiso con el multilateralismo. Mis colegas y yo les deseamos éxitos en su trabajo, buena salud para ustedes y familiares. Muchas gracias. Ahora, colegas, pasaremos a una sesión más interactiva, donde queremos que cada uno de ustedes nos cuente sus prioridades con respecto a la agenda común y para el mundo general, a través de una encuesta electrónica que se presentará en breve aquí, a través de las pantallas. Para dar inicio a esta parte de la sesión, me dirigiré a Michelle Griffin, de la Oficina del Secretario General de la ONU, Antonio Guterres, que como funcionaria experta, la señora Griffin es persona designada por el señor Guterres a cargo de la consulta global que se llevará a cabo durante el próximo mes. Le hemos pedido que describa los objetivos de la consulta y el proceso en el que pueden participar todos los parlamentarios a través del enlace de la Secretaría de la IPU, que será publicado en el chat. Antes de ir a expresarnos en la encuesta y al debate, le pido a la señora Griffin que nos cuente sobre la consulta de la ONU y en qué punto se encuentra el secretario general de la ONU en su plan para responder a la declaración de la ONU del pasado mes de septiembre. Señora Griffin, la palabra es suya.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes? Okay, great. Sorry, this is for my first time using this platform. Perfect. Okay, it's my first time using this platform, so forgive me in advance if I screw up. I'm definitely a technological dinosaur. So first of all, thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to engage with all of you today. Delighted to have that opportunity, and I definitely, part of our effort this year is to make sure we're listening to many voices as we try to think about where multilateralism stands in the 75th anniversary after World War II. So let me just give you a sense of what this common agenda effort is, and then turn to more specifics about what we'd like to kind of consult you on. I mean, you all know, and I think you've probably heard in the former session. I apologize that I didn't hear it. So also apologies if I repeat anything that's already been said. That the UN 75th anniversary in 2020 to 21, we already had planned to kind of have conversations around the future of multilateralism as an anniversary kind of gives you an opportunity to do. But of course, it then happened to coincide with what I think we all agree has been the biggest global crisis since the founding of the organization. Certainly one of the biggest crises felt by people all around the world. So that really gave us an opportunity to kind of have to think deep and hard about what kind of reset we need to multilateralism and global governance, but also national level governance. As part of the anniversary, even before COVID, we launched a global listening exercise in January 2020, in which we asked over 1 million people in all UN member states to tell us what their priorities were for the future and what ideas for action they might propose. We had surveys and polling and listening exercises and dialogues, and we developed a very good sense from those dialogues as to kind of what people's priorities were. And I think, you know, it really told us that people still do look to the UN. They look to international institutions to support their governments in solving the biggest problems that we face. And if anything, the COVID experience, I think, for most people really reinforced that desire for problem solving at the global level, and a sense that institutions at the global level are letting them down and are not actually helping to solve the biggest problems they face, and certainly not in time. In conjunction with the anniversary, our own member states also adopted a declaration, the UN 75 declaration, in which they identified 12 areas of action where they recommitted to collective problem solving and international cooperation. And those areas include climate change, they include digital cooperation, they include trust and equality, they include rule of law, human rights, women and girls, youth and future generations, peace and security. And they also, in that declaration, asked the Secretary General to come back at the end of the 75th session, so by September 2021, with a report on how we can all work together to solve our shared problems and confront our common future. So the SG really sees that mandate as an opportunity to think seriously about the future of multilateralism. And of course, it coincides with what we hope is our emergence from this global pandemic. And there's a broad consensus, and certainly the Secretary General has been very vocal on this over the past year, that we need to reset the core foundations and values that underpin collective action so that we ensure a fair and equitable and sustainable global recovery from COVID-19, accelerate efforts to achieve Agenda 2030. We were already not on track to achieve that agenda. I think you've probably been talking about that in your the first session this morning. And now we are further set back and need to accelerate those efforts to get back on track towards climate action and the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement, and to put in place a more inclusive, networked, an effective multilateral system that can deliver the most critical global public goods, support international problem solving and collective action, and make sure that we keep our promises to both current and future generations. So the mandate to the Secretary General is, as I said, to produce a report that covers all of these issues by September of this year. And we're already working hard on that report. And we have already some thinking that the SG himself has put out into the world in the last year around kind of what the core components of this report could be. And a lot of them coalesce around the idea of solidarity. So we're thinking about, you know, solidarity within societies, between people, and reimagining the social contract that exists between people and the institutions that govern their lives. We're thinking about solidarity at the global level between countries and between peoples, so that we work better and more collectively together to solve our biggest problems before they overwhelm us. And I think, you know, we live daily the headlines around vaccine nationalism and all of the ways in which the rollout of the response to COVID-19 and the vaccines has maybe not been as imbued with that solidarity as we would like it to have been. And then finally, we're thinking about solidarity with young people and future generations. The UN Charter opens with a promise to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. I think we feel that now that promise needs to go well beyond the scourge of war to the scourge of climate change, to the scourge of inequality, the scourge of unsustainable economic and social and political practices that rob future generations of their rights to a healthy and viable future. And we really want to think about how do we put forward ideas that can kind of articulate to the world what we owe future generations and how to take them into account in decision making. So the consultation that we are inviting you to, you'll see, contains questions that speak to all of these issues. And these questions come from a lot of the brainstorming and thinking that we have been doing. And IPU has very helpfully provided you already, I think, with some multiple choice options under those questions that might guide you to kind of coalescing around specific ideas. So I'm going to stop here and let you engage in that consultation. And thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you this thinking.
Muchas gracias, señora Griffin. Y sé que mis colegas, después de su explicación, van a desear participar de este proceso y usted ha preparado muy bien el escenario que tendremos a partir de ahora. Ahora procederemos a la encuesta. Nuestra Secretaría de la IPU ha tomado las 9 preguntas principales que utiliza la consulta de las Naciones Unidas, y para tener una ventaja en este ejercicio se agregaron posibles respuestas de opción múltiple para su comodidad y para tener una idea más amplia de lo que piensan los parlamentarios. Para cada pregunta se les pide que seleccione hasta 2 respuestas. Si tienen otra idea, pueden seleccionar otro, si su opción preferida no está en la lista. Procederemos con una pregunta a la vez y la secretaria, señora Patricia Tosny, que es secretaria del comité, leerá las preguntas y sus posibles respuestas para garantizar que todos los que nos están oyendo y viendo puedan participar y escuchar en su propio idioma. Después de minutos de la votación, Interpretify publicará los resultados y podremos discutir. Si alguien elige otro, considere comentarnos su idea en el chat para que podamos ver la selección. Y después del tiempo posible, si tenemos tiempo, por supuesto, que invitemos a alguno de ustedes a desarrollar esa otra opción que no estaba en el multiple choice. Patricia, por favor, puede avanzar con la primera opción. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Senator Romero. The first question, the slide will come up, is how can decision-making take more account of the future? And if you, on your event chat on the right-hand corner, if you go over to the slide your cursor to the vote, you will see a vote come up. But the questions are, the selection, you have to accept, sorry, I'm just doing it myself at the same time. So we need your ideas. You can pick up to 2, as the senator has said, but how can decision-making take more account of the future? And your options are strengthen capacity to analyze trends and future projects. The one beside that on the vote is include youth in consultations for national development plans and budgets. And going downwards, sorry. Sorry, I'm just having a little. Create parliaments in every country. The 4th choice is make the global ecological footprint and official sustainability measure, or if you slide in the box, you can choose other. So once you've made up to 2 selections, you hit vote and the results will go in. So we'll leave that poll open for 30 seconds. Again, I hope you've heard the selections in the various languages. Again, strengthen data collection capacity to analyze trends and future projects, include youth in consultations for national development plans and budgets, create youth parliaments in every country, make the global ecological footprint an official sustainability measure, or other. So once we have your selections, we can close the vote on that question. If our technicians see a good number of votes coming in, then we can close that. You do need to slide down in the window to see the vote in the event chat. You just need to scroll down to be able to hit vote. You have to vote on the bottom. Okay, so we'll close the vote on that selection. I'm just going to hit other to make my vote. Okay, the host has stopped the voting. And just to reiterate what the senator has told us and what this is a worldwide, they're specifically interested in hearing from parliamentarians, and we will repost in the link, and of course we'll make sure that you have it. If you need help finding it, we will be happy to make sure that you have the ability to vote within the next couple of weeks. So here's the choice. So lots of people think that we need to strengthen data collection capacity to analyze trends and future projections. And then the second most popular choice was to include consultations for national development plans and budgets. That's perfect. We'll now go on to the second question, unless anyone wanted to put up their hand to make a comment in that section. Just looking for hands. Burundi, your hand is still up. I don't know if you would like to intervene on this. Maybe you can post that in the event chat. Nous n'aurons pas. Just a moment. Checking the chat. Okay, Madagascar voted for the fourth one, which was make the global ecological footprint official sustainability. I don't know, Madagascar, if you would like to comment on that, you can perhaps raise your hand. And if you would like to, we can pick that up in the next discussion. Okay, so that item actually got a very close second place. Again, we're going to take this information and input it into that global consultation. But when you'll just see that it's the chapeau, the making, take more account of the future question, and you'll be allowed to open your own comments. I'll now ask the technicians. Oh, sorry, your hand is. Sorry, I'm getting some help. Madagascar, can I turn to you, please? If we can bring in Madagascar. There we go.
Oui.
You wanted to comment.
Yes, I'm going to speak French. English is not very good. Bonjour à tous. Je trouvais très intéressant cette réunion, et notamment concernant les Nations Unies tout à l'heure. Mais là, pour le vote, effectivement, comme vous savez, que Madagascar a une ambition naturelle par rapport à l'environnement. Et le fait que nous soyons une grande île, avec autant de richesses en biodiversité, on ne peut pas faire le développement sans l'environnement. Donc c'est pour ça que c'est pour ça que j'ai voté pour l'environnement, pour qu'on puisse prendre en compte pour l'avenir de la politique environnementale on a une politique mondiale environnementale qui est correcte, malheureusement, qui n'est pas appliquée comme il le faut, avec le réchauffement de la planète que nous avons aujourd'hui, avec les engagements qui n'ont pas été respectés par les différents. Mais nous, par exemple, à Madagascar, on est obligé d'avancer avec le respect de l'environnement, avec le respect de l'homme et de la nature. Et comme vous le savez, je disais tout à l'heure, nous avons une grande richesse en termes de biodiversité. On doit faire avec. C'est vraiment très facile de développer un pays lorsqu'il a autant de richesses en biodiversité. Malheureusement, ce n'est pas encore bien perçu par un certain nombre de décideurs dans notre pays, mais je reste très optimiste quant à l'avenir. Et c'est pour ça que j'ai voté pour le point numéro 4 et que nous tous, quel que soit le pays, que ce soit le vôtre, on doit prendre en compte cet environnement. Et je pense que là, on parle beaucoup des jeunes aujourd'hui dans notre conférence. Et vous savez que les jeunes, c'est eux qui nous interpellent bien souvent. Parce que maintenant, ce qu'on est en train de décider, c'est pas pour nous qui ont déjà plus de 40 ans, mais ça sera pour ceux qui ont encore 10, 15 ans, ce que nous décidons aujourd'hui. Et donc, c'est pour ça que j'ai pris ce point. Merci beaucoup, madame. Et tout le monde. Merci à vous tous.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us. And I hope you'll stay because we have a few more votes to take, and this is very helpful to have this. And you've reminded me again that for each of the questions, we would like to bring somebody into comment. So if you are interested particularly in explaining your vote or your choice, if I can get the next question up, we can then go into that vote. Okay, so the next question is on what institutional changes can help deliver peace and security. So we've put up 6 choices in this question. The first choice is cut national military spending budgets by half in the next 4 years. The second choice is establish in law a maximum that countries can spend on the military. Imagine that would be a percentage of their GDP. The third option is include more women in building and in military leadership. The fourth option is expand the UN Security Council membership to suit current geopolitics, because there certainly have been some shifts in the last 75 years. The fifth option is to introduce a culture of peace, teaching in school curricula. So if you choose that option, again, you have to accept the poll. So what institutional changes can help deliver peace and security? Cut national military budgets by half in the next 4 years. Establish by international law a maximum that countries can spend on the military. Include more women in peace building and military leadership. Expand the UN Security Council membership to suit current geopolitics. And the fifth option is to introduce a culture of peace teaching in school curricula. And the other one is other. And we would ask some people that choose other. I'm choosing other just so I can move on and submit my vote. So we'll leave this open for another few seconds. Get my stopwatch going. And if we have about 30 votes in, if we could end the voting session, please. Perfect. And if anyone, while they're tabulating the results for that question, if anyone wishes to post something in the chat or to seek the floor, they can raise their hand. I see I have a comment. Thank you, Canada, for joining us. Okay. No one has put to speak, but if someone did wish to take the floor on this particular question, to make a question or comment, we would give you the floor. And the report will be up shortly on how people voted for that question. Here we go. And on this question of what institutional changes can help for peace, choice was number 5, introduce culture of teaching in school curriculum. So creating that culture of peace and teaching it to children at school is the most important choice, according to the members of parliament who voted. And the second large choice is to cut military spending budgets by half over the next 4 years. That would be a dramatic reduction in military spending. And of course, people would have the ability to spend on other things. If anyone else wanted to explain their vote, we will have a chance for an intervention. I do not see a hand up, so I will ask our technicians to turn to the third question. And the third question is about the environment. It's under the section called Our World. And the questions that are going to be put up for the next vote are: what immediate actions are needed to accelerate collective action on climate change? So our friends from Madagascar will definitely like that. So what immediate action, if I can get the screen with the next question, please. Thank you. What immediate actions are needed to accelerate collective action on climate? The third question. And you will see that the vote is posted in your chat. There we go. I need to accept the ability to vote. So what immediate actions are needed to accelerate collective action on climate change? Now we've put 10 options here, quite a few. So I'll take you through those. The first option is to phase out all subsidies for fossil fuels within the next 4 years. The next option is to enable communities to produce locally what they consume. The next option is to invest massively in renewable energy and green industries. Or you may choose implement massive reforestation projects globally. Number 5, expand public transit and make cities more pedestrian and bike friendly. Number 6, invest in the care economy to improve human well-being. Number 7 is change standards to ensure high input products like electronics or cars last for a lifetime. And then tighten rules for marketing practices with the aim of curbing consumerism. The last option that we've typed is institute environmental education for school curricula. Et pour notre collègue de France, c'est pour cette raison, parce que nous n'avons pas avoir l'habilité d'avoir toutes les questions dans toutes les langues. So that's the reason you have to listen to me reading the questions and listening in your own language, but I hope that you delineation as you drop down. So that one was lengthy. So again, immediate action to accelerate action on climate change. Phase out subsidies on fossil fuels within the next 4 years. Enable communities to produce locally what they consume. Invest massively in renewable energy and green technologies. Again, if you scroll down, you'll see implement massive reforestation projects globally. could choose to expand public transit and make cities more pedestrian and bike friendly. You could choose invest in the care economy to improve human well-being. Change standards to ensure high input products, electronics, cars, televisions, last a lifetime. Number 8, tighten rules for marketing practices with an aim of curbing consumerism. Number 9, institute global education in school curricula. Or number 10, other. I'm going to just choose other so that I can move on. Those were a lot of choices. We appreciate that. I think if everyone's been able to make their selection, we will the voting. I will invite anyone to raise their hand if they would like to explain their vote. And I will ask to post the results from that very many choices on that slide. Here we go. Madagascar. Okay, that's good. You chose 3 and 9. I'm just going to get the slides. So the overwhelming choice was to invest massively in renewable energy and green infrastructure. Green industries, rather. And then, well, it's a pretty well a tie. We've got lots of people who want to end subsidies. We wish to implement massive. We have lots of support for changing input items. We have tighten rules for marketing to curb consumerism, and then invest in environmental education. I put other, so I know I'm one of the others. If there's somebody else who put other and they wanted to raise their green hand by pushing on the green hand up on that top, an explanation of what their choice would be, we'd be happy to hear from you. I don't know if anybody has raised their hand. I don't see any hands. The next, nobody wanted to explain. Madagascar voted for 3 and 9, renewable energy, and 9, environmental education. Definitely looking to that future generation. I hear you, Madagascar. Madagascar, if you can have a minute and a half or 2 minutes. Madagascar, the floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, vous savez, je vis l'environnement, je vis les difficultés de destruction forestière et autres. Comme vous le savez, nous, il y a 500 000 hectares de forêts qui disparaissent chaque année. C'est énorme. Donc, plusieurs gouvernements qui ont succédé n'ont pas trouvé la solution. Donc, il faut instituer ça déjà dans l'éducation des enfants. Il faut que ce soit compris dès les petites classes. Parce que lorsque vous dites aux paysans, ne coupez pas l'arbre, par exemple, s'il s'agit des paysans ou alors d'autres personnes, et alors qu'ils vivent de ça, ils ne peuvent pas comprendre. Donc, il faut de l'énergie de substitution aussi. C'est pour ça que j'ai choisi de voter pour le numéro 3 et le numéro 9. Parce qu'on doit avancer sur l'énergie renouvelable. Et un pays comme le nôtre, nous avons beaucoup de possibilités de barrages hydroélectriques, beaucoup de possibilités aussi d'installer des panneaux solaires. Donc, on est en bonne voie sur ça. Malheureusement, les gouvernements qui se sont succédés n'ont pas priorisé ça. Mais il y a un ancien gouvernement qui date des années 80 jusqu'en 1980 jusqu'en 2000 qui avait priorisé l'énergie renouvelable. Et maintenant, c'est là qu'on comprend qu'effectivement, il faut faire les barrages hydroélectriques, il faut donner de l'électricité dans le milieu rural pour que les gens se développent, pour que les gens s'épanouissent. Voilà. Donc, c'est pour ça que j'ai voté pour le 3 et le 9. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you to our colleague for that intervention. I'll now ask that the next slide go up with the next question. We're almost halfway there. The next question is, how should we define and manage global public good? So we're going to give you 4 options. 5 is the other option. How should we define global public goods? 1, public goods are all assets and services that must be accessible to all. So I just noticed public goods are all assets and services that must be accessible to all. The second option is public goods should be financed through the state or sub-state budget. The public goods should not be subject to sale or concession to private companies. Number 4, public goods include scientific knowledge that serves the public interest. And number 5 is other. So I'll say those again. How should we define and manage global public goods? Public goods are all assets and services that must be accessible to all citizens or people. Number 2, public goods should be financed through the state or sub-state budget. Number 3, public goods should not be subject to sale or concession to private companies. Number 4, public goods include scientific knowledge that serves the public interest. And number 5 is other. We'll leave that open for a couple of seconds, and then we will get the vote. If everyone's able to scroll down, we're doing well time-wise. If you can vote. If the senator can give me the nod that he's voted, then I'll be sure to end the vote. Senator, have you voted? Senator Romero, you're good?
Good. I mean, only one.
Thank
green,
you.
but the other one's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so you voted and your mic's still open, and we are going to ask to close the vote. So first close the vote, and then we'll tabulate the results. Thank you. And then I'm going to look in the event chat. Madagascar has chosen vote, which is the public goods are all assets and services that must be accessible to all. And I do see that we have this tremendous support from Inter-Parliamentary, who are madly calculating and new slide to the results of that. And again, if any of the other MPs wish to tell us why they voted a certain way, we'd love to hear from you. Burundi, you may be interested in commenting on how you voted. We do have about 10 people watching this session online. I don't think they're all my mother or father. The answer now. Okay, so lots of support, overwhelmingly, for public goods are all assets that be accessible to all. And then number 7, public goods should include scientific knowledge that serves the interest of public interest. And of course, that's a very big issue right now on vaccines. And I'm just going to look to see if anyone's raised their hand in the green hand. Argentina, Senator Romero, did you want to comment?
Gracias, Paddy. En esta coincido en las dos preguntas, que son las que coincido cuando yo voté la 1 y la 4, pero quiero decir que la 3 es un poco tricky, digamos, porque solamente da la opción de que los bienes públicos no sean sujetos a venta o concesión. Pero da oportunidad a uno a responder lo opuesto, solamente por la negativa, y no da la opción de responder la parte positiva. Yo creo que si hubiera tenido la oportunidad de optar por la negativa o la positiva en el tema de la privatización, entonces, en mi experiencia me indican de que el esfuerzo los públicos debe ser tanto público como privado, debe ser tanto sector público como privado, y el Estado en ese caso tener una gran capacidad regulatoria y de control para que no haya abusos, para que no haya posiciones dominantes o haya falta de competencia, pero la pregunta me ha gustado que hubiera permitido dar alguna visión como la que estoy explicando ahora respecto a que sí es necesario la participación del sector privado también en la provisión de bienes públicos. Muchas gracias.
Terrific. And that's, Senator, one of the reasons why we're going to encourage who's on this call and in our broader parliamentary community to go on the UN's website or the link that we're going to provide again. We'll post it again in the chat and discussion, participate in this global consultation that Michelle outlined. We just put up a few options for people. We certainly know that that third option is debated in many countries in terms of public good. So we hope that we do have a lot of parliamentarians participate in the session that now. I'll ask our technicians to put up the next question. Next three questions relate to the issue of our society. And so this first one, we have put up a few options on this as well, but the next question is, how can we build trust between people and institutions? And that's something, as you as parliamentarians know firsthand, how important this is. How can we build trust in institutions? I need to accept the ability to vote. So is open all institutions to more public scrutiny and participation. The next option is ensure parliamentarians host local roundtable discussions on key issues in their constituencies, in their district. The next option is limit media monopolies to promote diversity of views. The next option is ensure every parliament has independent resources. Number 5, national responsibility to local authorities to the people. And number 6, ensure all government documents are public, or you can other. So let me read through those again for those of you listening in different languages. How can we build trust between people and institutions? Choose up to 2 options. 1, open all institutions to more scrutiny and participation. 2, ensure parliamentarians host local roundtable discussions on key issues. Number 3, limit media monopolies to promote diversity of views. Number 4, ensure every parliament has independent resources, not in the control of any party or of the government. Number 5, devolve national responsibilities to local authorities closer to the people. Number 6, ensure all government documents are publicly accessible, or you could choose other. And I'm just going to scroll down and choose other. Vote. And we'll leave that open for a few seconds. And if anyone did want to explain their vote, if they can raise their hand, we can go to them in the next session. So a couple more seconds on keeping the vote open. And a reminder that there is a broader consultation. We want you we'll put the link in the chat. We will, our friend from Madagascar has voted to limit media monopolies to promote a diversity of views. I'll ask our technicians to close the vote, please. Voting has stopped, and so now we will work on getting the results and populating them, producing a slide. It's interesting, in number 3, we were going to write, we had a limit of characters that we could put on any of the technology. We were going to say both limit media monopolies to promote diversity of views, but also invest in independent media is another way that we could have looked at this as well. I don't know if anyone else wants to put their hand up by pressing the green hand that right now mine has an arrow, Madagascar. And if we have anybody else as well that wants to say how they voted, that will be helpful if they can raise their green hand. And we'll just have Milana will post our results shortly. Senator Romero's streaming has stopped, but he'll come back. If I can pull up Madagascar while we're getting those slides up, that would be great. Madagascar. Senator, I've just asked Madagascar to tell us why he chose number 3.
Yes, I'm going to try to speak in English.
Non, c'est possible en français aussi. Nous avons l'interprétation.
Okay. No, I want to do in English. Yeah. You know, one of the biggest problem in our countries is that we talk about democracy, we talk about freedom, we talk about respect, values, but we don't. When they get in power, they don't accept democracy, and this is one of the biggest problems in African continent. Okay, that's why, for example, we can see today in Chad, in this country, it's a big problem because he stayed for 30 years, during 30 years, and then when it's like this, you can't access in the media, national media. Even me, I can't access in the national media. That's why it's very important to have all elected people to have access in national media, because a monopoly of the party which is in power. It's for the country, it's for the population. So that's why I voted for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we also have, thank you so much for your intervention. We will pull up Bangladesh, but I'm just going to report to everyone because it's hard to see what the answers were, the majority. So 9 people voted for ensure all government documents are publicly accessible. And 8 people voted for open all institutions to more public scrutiny and participation. So those are the overwhelming support. And then there was a lot of support for the 5th one, which was to devolve national responsibilities to local authorities closer to the people. If I can get Bangladesh online. So Bangladesh, I don't know if you're able to connect. If Bangladesh is able to connect. Okay, I can't get Bangladesh. Maybe we can bring them in on the next one. If we can go to the next question, please. The next question is, how do we ensure more inclusive decision-making? We have put up a number of choices here again. In terms of, I need to, we're going to put the vote in the chat. So how do we ensure more decision-making processes? First option is ensure are better known publicly in a timely manner. Ensure processes are better known publicly in a timely manner. Number 2 is proactively engaging constituencies most directly affected by the decisions. So go out and find the people and bring them into the process. Number 3 is make it mandatory for all citizens to vote in elections. Australia has that law and a couple other countries do. Number 4, institutionalize redress. Constituencies unfairly excluded in decision making. So imagine that would be a legal process. Number 5, enable national referendum initiated by the people. Enable national referenda initiated by the people. All laws and budgets are easy to read and understand. The 7th option is other. So from the top, how to ensure more inclusive decision-making processes. Number 1, ensure processes are better known publicly in a timely manner. Act proactively affected by the decisions. Number 3, make it mandatory for vote in elections. Number 4, institutionalize redress for constituencies excluded in decision making. Enable national referenda initiated by the people. And number 6, ensure all votes and budgets are easy to read and understand. And the last option is other. So if you could please, vote, we will. If we can close the vote, please. We'll close the vote and produce the slide. And I will go to the chat, and I'm going to check if Bangladesh would like to, if Professor Ali Ashraf would like to comment in this section. I think Professor may actually be live right now. If we could go to you, results are coming up. Professor Ali Ashraf. I think you are live because I see a red circle. If you can unmute yourself. If I can go to Professor Ali Ashraf from Bangladesh. Okay, Bangladesh is open for streaming, but we are not able to get Bangladesh to connect. Okay, so the answer on this question overwhelmingly is ensure processes are better known publicly in a timely manner. And of course, that's a real challenge because lots of time votes take place, decisions are made quickly. The other one is, number 8. 8 people want national referenda initiated by the people. Some countries do this exceptionally well, and other countries, it takes some practice to get perfect. And then, of course, Madagascar, our friend from Madagascar, has chosen ensure all laws and budgets are easy to read. Some countries have something called the citizens budget, where they present the information in a very easy to communicate manner. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask that we put up the next question. We can put up the next question. It's the final question on how to improve society. And the next question is, how can we make societies more equal? How do we make society more equal? And I'm going to go over to vote. The vote will come up in the chat and the slides will come up. We've got a lot of multitasking here, and we're thankful for the team that's supporting us in this meeting. So here comes the slide. How to make societies more equal. Accept the voting. We have 8 options, 7 plus other. Establish national minimum wage above the official poverty line in each country. So establish a national minimum wage above the official poverty line in each country. Number 2, tax earnings from financial investments at least as much as work income. Number 3, a wealth tax to support social spending. Number 4, mandate equal of women and men in all public and private organizations. So that would include corporate boards, community organizations, governments. Strengthen unions and workers' collective bargaining power. Number 6, access to education for all. 7, ensure access to health care for all. And the last one is other. Again, from the top, how do we make societies more equal? Establish national minimum wages, official poverty line in each country. Number 2, tax earnings from financial investments at least as much as work income. Number 3, institute a wealth tax to support social spending. Number 4, mandate equal leadership of women and men in all public and private organizations. Number 5, strengthen unions and workers' collective bargaining power. Number 6, ensure education for all. And the 7th is ensure access to healthcare for all. So we'll give it a couple more seconds for people to vote. I have voted. Other. We'll give it a couple more seconds and then we will close the vote. If we can close, and then we can generate the slide. And if anyone wants to make an explanation of their vote, they can raise their hand. Their green hand on the top of your screen. You should have left interpretation and then speakers, and then you should have a green hand about the middle toward the right side. You can raise that green hand and we'll go to you for an explanation of your vote. The slide is being produced. And Madagascar has voted, our friend from Madagascar has raised his hand, and he's voted for ensuring access to education and healthcare are available for all. Senator Romero, I don't know if you wanted to comment here. These were the overwhelming favorite from Madagascar. You're in the majority on health and education. Senator Romero, did you want to comment on? Oh, I need, you have to open your microphone.
Sí, debo decir que coincido con el resultado, que la principal misión del Estado en los países en desarrollo, sobre todo, es proveer educación y salud como forma de garantizar después el progreso. Por supuesto, lo primero que yo creo que tiene que hacer la sociedad para ser igual es la educación, la salud, pero también el trabajo. Y el trabajo se crea a través de políticas que generen un fomento de la inversión y la producción y el aprovechamiento de los recursos que cada país tiene. Por supuesto que esto tiene que ser hecho con la seriedad y que permita que los resultados se vuelquen en la sociedad. Hay muchos ejemplos exitosos de esto en el mundo y creo que, como esa pregunta no está aquí sobre qué es el desarrollo económico, creo que la base para un futuro desarrollo económico es la educación y la salud. Por eso coincido absolutamente con el resultado de la votación.
Twice. Sorry, I hit my mute button. I'm also going to note that Costa Rica has commented in the chat, I think, and Pina, who's a member of the bureau of this committee, has written, more private investment, especially in is key in order to reduce unemployment as well. That's a very good option. And I will now ask Madagascar if they also wanted to comment, because your hand is up. Take my hand down. And if we can bring in Madagascar for one comment, and then we have 2 more questions and we'll be done this section. Madagascar, s'il vous plaît.
Oui, merci. Oui, merci beaucoup. Comme on le sait, lorsqu'on parle de pauvreté, on parle là d'indice de développement humain. L'indice de développement humain, c'est la possibilité d'avoir l'accès à un minimum d'éducation et à un minimum de revenus. Et donc, et puis après, c'est la santé. Donc, ça va ensemble. L'éducation, un minimum de revenus, la santé, ça va ensemble. Lorsqu'on n'améliore pas l'accès à l'éducation, donc vous avez un pays qui va s'appauvrir, forcément. Peu importe la richesse du pays. Comme notre pays, c'est très riche en termes de minerais, en termes de potentialité au niveau économique, mais socialement, on ne va pas bien. On ne va pas bien parce qu'on a mis de côté l'éducation, on n'a pas priorisé l'éducation, qui devrait être un rôle régalien de l'État malgache. Donc, c'est pareil en Afrique aussi. Hein. Quand je parle de Madagascar, c'est à peu près la même chose dans les pays, on va dire, en difficulté. Et la santé, c'est pas facile parce que la santé, comme on le voit aujourd'hui, c'est maintenant qu'on se rend compte que c'est la première des choses qui est primordiale, la santé. C'est aujourd'hui qu'on se rend compte dans beaucoup de pays que, en fin de compte, plus rien ne va sans la santé. On ne doit plus travailler aujourd'hui parce que la santé va mal. On ne doit plus sortir aujourd'hui parce que la santé va mal. Donc maintenant, il faut vraiment accepter que la santé est quelque chose qu'on ne doit plus mettre de côté, qu'on ne manque plus de rien et qu'on ne va pas investir sur autre chose. Comme nous, par exemple, nous dénonçons des investissements sur les stades de football, énormes investissements dans les infrastructures sportives effectués par l'État, et on met de côté la santé. Là, on ne peut pas accepter ça, vous comprenez? Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on s'insurge, on essaie de corriger pour que l'éducation, la santé soit notre priorité aujourd'hui. Dans le monde où nous vivons aujourd'hui, ça devrait être comme ça. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much to our friend from Madagascar. And now we also have someone from Saudi Arabia. If I can ask you for your comments, please.
Thank you very much. Je suis tout à fait d'accord. I completely agree with our friend from Madagascar that without education, without health, a country definitely will not succeed on any level. However, there are countries that do provide health and education to all. And Saudi Arabia is an example, and for that reason, I voted for number 1, because I do believe that it is important that the minimum wage is above the official poverty line. And I think with a question like this one, it needs to take into consideration the fact that there are countries who make available both education and health to all citizens. And for that reason, we need to choose another option. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to Saudi Arabia, again, this is really important. This is going global, and we want as many parliamentarians as possible to participate and share their perspectives. And it's given in some places, so that the underlying conditions are there. The more MPs we can have participate in this consultation and add their ideas, we just added a few options just to have the dialogue going, which is terrific. So thank you very much for coming in, and we'll put up the next question. I'll also ask someone to write in the chat if one of my colleagues can put the link again. So this next question, the last 2 questions are about the UN specifically. So under the Our UN, they have questions, and the first one is on global governance. How can global governance arrangements be more networked? How can global governance be more networked? We have 4 options. Really. Enable people to provide direct negotiations. Enable people to provide direct input to UN negotiations. The second option is implement more closely with the UN country representative. Engage Parliament more closely with the UN country representative. And the third option is enable more parliamentary dialogue around global issues through the IPU. The last one is on the top. How can global governance arrangements networked? 1, enable provide direct input to UN negotiations. 2, engage Parliament more closely with the UN country representative. And 3, enable parliamentary dialogue around global issues through IPU. Okay, I'm going to pick that one. To slide down and vote. I did pick other on all the others. We will, this is very short, so if everyone's good, I'm going to give you more seconds. And be closed, please. There we go. The slide, and if anyone wants to make a comment on this section, we'll be happy to have them raise their green hand. I'm going to go to the event chat, and in the event chat, I'm going to post. Thank you, Madagascar. I'm going to post the link again. It was up in an earlier, but I'll post it again while the slide is being generated. It's We the People, SWAE.io/sign up. In that link, We the People, so WETHEPLESWAE.io/sign up. You can participate in the main, the big consultation yourself. So glad to see such support, including my one vote, for enabling more dialogue around global issues through the IPU. No pressure, but thank you for putting that there. This option of engaging Parliament more closely with the UN country representative. And we'll remind people that through the IPU, we have worked with UN, and it's part of the mandate for the country representatives to meet with the Parliament and to engage with them. The UN country team in your Parliament, you are welcome to invite them to your Parliament, and that should be part of their discussion. Alessandro, my colleague Alessandro Motter, who's worked so hard on this, has put a comment in the chat, and I'm going to read it out for all listening in different languages. As a general comment to these results and the focus on education and health from the last question, note policies that cut education and health have been applied in the past few decades, arguing that there was no money in the state budget. So ensuring is that governments find ways to raise more revenue through more progressive taxation. Those who can afford contribute more. That's an important. State budgets need to have enough money for education and healthcare, and they have to make sure they have that money. Thank you, Alessandro. And now to our last question on this section, and then you get to hear from the Senator again. The is how, under this Our UN, the last question is, how can global institutions, including the UN, be more inclusive and representative? And we've given you 7 options. The first option, mandate that national delegations to major UN meetings include parliamentarians. 2, require UN ambassadors report regularly on major negotiations. 3, change the UN Charter to recognize parliaments as key. Level the playing field at the World Bank and the IMF has only one vote, as they do at the United Nations. Number 5, open all WTO, World Trade Organization, proceedings to parliamentarians and civil society representatives. And number 6, the G20 and the G7 more accountable directly to the parliaments of member states. And number 7 is other. So I'll read those again quickly. The question is, how can global institutions, including the United Nations, be more inclusive and representative? 1, mandate delegations to major UN meetings parliamentarians. Number 2, require UN ambassadors, require regularly to their parliament on major negotiations that are underway. Number 3, change the to recognize parliaments as key to global governance. Number 4, at the World Bank and the IMF, so that each country has only one vote. Number 5, open all World Trade Organization proceedings to parliaments and civil society representatives. Number 6 is make the G20 7 more accountable directly to the parliaments of these member states. So I'm gonna vote. And someone has just sent me a message. Thailand has written a message that says, good evening. A small comment on whether societies will be more equal now will depend on how people can have equal access to vaccines. To our friend from Thailand, you are getting access to vaccines is very important and will, in fact, designate equality. I think if everyone, I'm just going to check the chat. Okay. I think everyone should have had time. If we can please close the voting on that. I'm going to go back to the event chat to see if anyone else has made a comment. We have other. If anyone would like to raise their hand, and then we're going to go to the, once we get up the slide, we'll get, and I will turn the floor back to Belarus. Belarus, you want to mandate that national delegations to major UN meetings include parliamentarians. Music to my ears, Belarus. In many countries, they do include parliamentarians, but it's not mandated. I know our friends in the UK have told us that it's not possible to mandate under the constitution as written. So each country will have to figure a way out, but certainly the UN could help by mandating that. And as soon as the slide is ready, the tech team with the and I'll just, here we go. Thank you again, Milena, for all your work. We had some technical issues and people were up late last night trying to figure this out and early this morning. So thank you all for participating. And the results. Oh, look at that. Number 3 is the front runner, which is change the UN Charter to recognize parliaments as key to global governance. Interesting. And then the second one is mandate that national delegations to major UN meetings include parliamentarians. So that received 10 votes. And then perhaps the easiest, the most doable from each of you in your own parliaments is that you could require your UN ambassador to report regularly to your parliament on major negotiations. That will probably be the easiest of the 3 fixes if you want to try and work on. And then, of course, number 5, those of you who are interested, the 5th item received 5 votes, and that's to make sure that parliamentarians and civil society reps can be more engaged in the WTO. And of course, we have an IPU WTO meeting. And so Madagascar has also mentioned that countries that are least developed or less developed should have representatives on the Security Council of the United Nations. And of course, on the 10 non-permanent seats, there is some rotation. I think you're expand this UN Security Council, and that's certainly an option as well. Again, a little bit tougher. I think the accomplish right now is number 2, because you have the power ambassadors. But I will thank our tech team and thank my colleagues for this work, and I'll turn the back over to Senator. Conclusion of all for your help.
Gracias, Patricia. Ya nos acercamos al final de nuestra reunión. Debo recordarles que tomaremos los resultados y lo proporcionaremos a la consulta global de la ONU. Debo decir que las respuestas mayoritarias tuvieron un gran contenido del sentido común, que a veces no es el más común de los sentidos. Y se publicará también en el chat, Patricia, que le agradezco el trabajo que hizo en esta encuesta, se publicará un enlace en el chat para otras personas puedan participar. Yo les sugiero a los colegas enviar a cada legislador de su país una comunicación, un mail, explicando las razones que mueve a las Naciones Unidas a hacer esta consulta, y que es una consulta muy importante para cambiar las cosas, que está abierta a los 45.000 parlamentarios que existen en el mundo. Quiero agradecer también a todos los que participaron en la sesión de nuestro comité esta semana. Para su información, presentaré un resumen de la reunión al Consejo de Gobierno de la Asamblea a finales de mayo. Esta es mi última sesión como presidente del Comité de Asuntos de la ONU, de la IPU. Quiero agradecer a mis colegas del Buró, a la Secretaría de la IPU, a Patricia, a Alejandro, por su apoyo durante estos años, que hemos podido hacer un trabajo muy coordinado. En este último tiempo, aún con más dificultades, por encontrarnos, solamente poder encontrarnos a través de esta metodología virtual. Confiamos que la próxima asamblea pueda ser presencial. Un gusto trabajar con todos ustedes. Mi experiencia se ha enriquecido con los asuntos de la Nación Unida, y como parlamentario siempre estaré preocupado en cumplir los objetivos que aquí hemos debatido y que hemos compartido tanto en la IPU como en las Naciones Unidas. Este comité viene trabajando para fortalecer el vínculo de esta institución, la IPU, con las Naciones Unidas, y que este vínculo sea más abierto, más profundo, y generemos mayores responsabilidades a la hora de tomar decisiones. Quien me sucederá en la presidencia será electo a finales de esta asamblea, y le deseo a esta persona mucho éxito, esperando cuando asuma acompañarlo presencialmente. Muchísimas gracias por esta palabra. Declaro cerrada la sesión.